Hello guys, Phantom GG here, and today we will be doing episode 1 of Unpopular Opinion. For today's topic, we will be talking about keystones and my belief in why they should not exist in the game. So, my opinion, keystones were a mistake and we should 100% go to standard stat check runes, where in the old system, runes gave nothing more than stats and masteries were kept separate and masteries would give you some basically kind of the same stuff that some of these runes do, like some little bit of punch abilities, but they were kind of low impact for the most part. And what I really want to go into is that they make balancing harder than it should be. And what I mean by that is, let's say 10 champions all share a singular rune. The best example right now would be Conqueror. And let's say a few of those champions were incredibly good using this rune, but they could easily live without it. So, like, let's say we take the Conqueror, and like two of those champions would go back to Electrocute, their win rate would stay fine. One champion would use Airy, her win rate would be fine. Another champion would just go use Grasp of Dying. Like, basically, four of those champions out at 10 would be completely fine if Conqueror got removed. They would just go to something else, and their win rates would just be fine. But let's say one of those champions was only good because of Conqueror, and without Conqueror, they would just struggle even further. I know some people would disagree with me on this topic, but the fact is that the exact second that Conqueror got released, a very specific blue boy named Aurelion Sol swapped to Conqueror. And Conqueror, in all honesty, played a big role in helping Aurelion Sol become relevant into the meta. And if you were to talk to some very high elo Aurelion Sol mains, they would be very, very grateful for Conqueror's existence. And a lot of them say without Conqueror, Acel just goes back to being painfully mediocre. Then let's look at other champions like Mordekaiser, like Akali, like Ryze, like Cassiopeia, Anivia. A lot of these champions would exist perfectly fine if Conqueror vanished. They would go back to doing what they used to do, and the champions would be fine. All Conqueror did was make already good champions even more broken, and it made little sense to rework this rune to be so functionable on the mage class. And Riot has admitted that they may have overtuned it and they will be nerfing Conqueror from 15% to 8%. This will effectively make it way less effective on mage champions, and I highly suspect that most of these champions will go back to using other runes. Some of them may still be using Conqueror, but a lot of them, I firmly believe, will be going back to looking at other runes. The Kali players, I suspect, will probably be looking at Electrocute again as options. They might even look at Fleet Footwork for the harder matchups. I'm unsure if Mordekaiser functions in decoding as ranged, so somebody correct me on that. Ryze will probably go back to using Phase Rush so he can have it for the defensive ability when he's in sticky situations. But Sol, for the most part, will probably be left without a very consistent, reliable rune again. Maybe he'll just keep Conqueror to make himself a little bit tankier. Maybe he'll just go back to what he used to be doing. And Sol is a perfect example of when some champions just become too reliant on runes being in their favor. An old example that I remember very closely was during back in Season 6 or Season 7, whenever they introduced Keystones for the first time, there was a rune called Fervor of Battle. And Fervor of Battle had a very simple ability. The more you auto attack and do things, the more damage you'll be doing with auto attacks. And Lucian was probably the most reliant champion in the game on Fervor of Battle. And Lucian mains basically had to ask themselves this question every single patch. Is Fervor of Battle good? Yes, my champion is relevant. Is it bad? Well, guess I can't play Lucian this patch. And that is how reliant Lucian was on Fervor of Battle being good. I'm firmly against this type of balancing because it makes it very hard to buff and nerf champions as individuals, where sometimes you'll have cases where a champion is only good because the keystone they're using is too good on them. And I really dislike that, because we should be able to buff and nerf champions to their individual needs. We should be able to look at Lucian and say, okay, he's a little weak right now. Maybe it would make his auto attacks do more range. Maybe we buff his Q a bit. And that is so hard to do when you're also thinking about, at the same time, well, what about the keystones? How does the keystones affect this champion? So sometimes in balancing, a champion will be too good because of a keystone. But the problem is here, if you nerf that keystone, you're not just nerfing that champion. You're nerfing everybody else who uses that keystone. You can't just... let's go back to Season 7, and let's say Lucian is broken because of Fervor of Battle. You can't just nerf Fervor of Battle for the sake of nerfing Lucian, because now when you're nerfing Fervor of Battle, you're nerfing everybody else who is using Fervor of Battle. And I do notice Riot is very slow on adjusting keystones for this exact reason, because keystones aren't just one champion, they're everybody else. And you see them have a very similar policy in nerfing or buffing items, because, once again, if you're, well, let's say Qiyana is only good because lethality is too strong. Well, you can't just nerf lethality, because if you're nerfing lethality, now you're nerfing Zed and Talon. So Zed and Talon now become victims of Qiyana using lethality too effectively. And I'm not saying this is what's actually going on, this is just an example. A problem with game balancing, when you have champions who share tools, it becomes really hard to adjust things. And I feel if we were to move forward to make a more balanced game, we would be far better off just removing keystones, going back to flat stats of attack speed runes, armor runes, AD runes. Then we can now go back to looking at champions as individuals and adjusting them to their according needs. Another example would be back when Akali was heavily abusing Electrocute, or when Zed was heavily abusing Electrocute, where they felt too good because the moment they would do their combo, Electrocute would just add in another 100 to 200 damage, and that just felt so oppressive, where I think we all remember the horrors of when Akali was first released and she was using Electrocute, where she would just go QWQ, and boom, Electrocute procs, and you're at half health at level 1. Literally half health level 1. And there was almost no counterplay against it, because you can't even dodge Electrocute. At least when Comet was OP, we could dodge Comet with a dash or a flash. Like, there was counterplay against Comet, but with Electrocute, it just happened. And when Electrocute was too good on certain champions, it felt bad. And you can even argue, to this day, it still feels bad. And so, what do we do? Do we nerf the keystone and at the same time nerf everybody who uses that keystone, or do we just nerf Zed because his Q is doing too much damage? It makes things confusing. So I'd say keep it simple, remove keystones, so that way we can say Zed is doing too much damage. Let's watch a replay. Why is he doing too much damage? Oh wow, Q is actually one-shotting people right now. Not saying that's actually what's happening, I'm just using it as an example. So we go, okay, Zed's Q is one-shotting people right now. Let's tone it down a bit. Let's go from 500 damage to 200 damage. Okay, problem solved. He's still good, he's just not OP anymore. Once again, not saying that's what's happening with Zed, this is just an example of nerfing a champion to his individual needs. And balancing like that is just far better and more effective. And so, my unpopular opinion, get rid of keystones. And there is an argument, well, where people try to go, well, keystones, they add playstyles and answers to unique situations. And my answer to that is, no, they really don't. There's very few champions in this game who fully utilize multiple runes for multiple scenarios. Most champions in this game have a set setup where they go with it every single game, because that's just the best setup, period. And you'll never really have a point in time where champions do different runes for different situations. It always comes down to what helps me kill better. what helps me survive better? And it becomes a scene of killing versus tankiness. The tanky rune is better. Okay, I go with the tanky rune. The damage rune is better. Okay, I go with the damage rune. Because at the end of the day, it's the same thing. It just all runes exist to help you kill more effectively. Like when Rise was taking Aftershock, he wasn't doing it to be defensive. He was taking Aftershock so he could run at you, activate his old W, pre-rework Rise, and then he gets all to nowhere, all his armor, and he can just keep on harassing you because he knows you can't harass him back because he has all this armor out of Aftershock. So we're noticing a trend here. It's not really about playstyle, it's just about what helps you kill the most effectively. So no, this whole myth of playstyle runes, unique situations is just untrue. And if we say, "Oh, I take fleet footwork for because it helps me survive better in hard lanes," well, let's talk about the old days where if you're in a hard lane, let's say you're facing a Zed and you're a mage, you would just go, "Okay, I just take all armor runes." Problem solved. No need for fleet footwork. Just go all armor runes. Or what? It's the opposite scenario. You're Zed and you're versus this really heavy poke mage like Seraph. You go, okay, I just take all magic resist runes, and that's what people did, and it was better that way. That time when champions were OP, you could just nerf them to their individual needs. If champions weren't strong enough, you could just buff them. But by adding Keystone, we add this very complicated equation that only makes the balance team lives harder. And right now, I don't even mock the balance team too much because there's just too much clutter going on to balance properly. Let's remove the clutter. Let's make the game easier to balance, and we'll have a better video game. So, I'm Phantom GG. My vote is get rid of Keystones, please.